Hey, good morning, everybody. No, it's been a couple weeks. I've had some work stuff, everything kind of piled on all out of nowhere, all at the same time. I had several projects that came to me at the same time, looking for very similar timelines. So I had absolutely no time to be spending on anything that I wanted to do, as well as I had some family stuff pop up at the same exact time. So everything just kind of snowballed on me for a couple weeks there. Things are starting to clear up now, so I'm getting back into the swing. I figured I would kick it off with one of the first live streams I've done in a while. Certainly one of the first live coding live streams I've done in a while. Geez, probably at least a year since I've done a live coding. Um, I am also going to be, I forgot to launch it, but I will be in the chat. I'm broadcasting on a few different services right now, and I should be in the chat for all of them. I believe it looks like I am. So if you guys have any, it's an open forum. If you have any questions or anything while we go through this, be sure to let me know. Um, I'm also going to be working on updating a task list for 1.7. It's getting really close to the final stretch here, but there are a lot of odds and ends that I need to clean up behind me here, and some of them I might have forgotten about because there are some parts of the program that I haven't touched in a while. And I might have mentioned, I need to go back and clean this up at a later time, blah, blah, blah. And in case that has slipped my mind, it'd be great if you guys could remind me or just shoot me any other suggestions you have right now because this is probably the best time as I go through and just do a general once over of the application, make sure it is in a ready enough state to start doing installer builds and stuff like that and start pushing it as a beta. Right now I don't even consider it right now an alpha state because I haven't been releasing any sort of installers or anything with it. It's just kind of a nightly build that requires everybody to copy the files into their folders. Good morning, Xenomorph Queen 13. So I am going to be jumping in here into Visual Studio first. Let me make sure I actually have my screen going. There we go. So I have a couple things that I want to try to accomplish this morning. One of the things is Input Mapper uses a kind of like a generic type that it converts all of its channels into that allows them to be intermappable. And that type is a decimal, or actually it's a double for being specific, because double uses a lot less memory than a decimal, so I decided to go with that. Um, but stuff like a axis, like a joystick throw. The value there is a double, anywhere from -1 for the left side throw to +1 for the right side throw. Things like buttons are also a double, but they're just going to have two values of 0 and 1. And by doing that, it allows, without any extra logic behind an input mapper, it allows these two types of channels to communicate with each other. But what we are going to do is, in preparation for coding for the DualShock 4 Light Bar, we are going to add another type into that kind of generic conversion there. So we need to convert light bar values into a double. Um, and you might ask, how you can convert something like a color into a double. Well, anybody that's done any kind of web development, anything like that, knows that colors are commonly referred to in a set of 3 bytes. or a string that's like F F F F F F for white, down to 0 0 0 0 0 0 for black. And with a certain amount of granularity, specifically 256 bytes of granularity for each color, you can choose generally any color you want using just this string. I say string loosely, of 6 characters. So it's not actually a string though. This is a hexadecimal number. And even though it has letters in it, it is actually still a number. And it's been so long since I've touched this section, I don't even know where I keep that stuff. I think it's in mapping. That would make sense, right? Yes, okay. So we have a section here called normalize, where it takes all of my values and normalizes. Actually, it looks like it sends it out to another method. Here we go. So this is where it takes any kind of input, and if it's a bool, it'll convert it to, like we were saying, either a 1 or a 0. If it's a double, it'll just pass it back as it is. If it's an unknown type, or if it's a null or anything else like that, it'll just spit out some generic numbers. But what we are going to do is now we are going to add color into this mix. Not sure if I want to create my own struct for color that defines it as specifically a set of bytes, or if I want to use a type that's already used in Windows, as there are. Let's see. Looks like I'm not creating the class that I need for this. I think the best way is probably just to create my own struct. Let's see, and bytes. Okay, no, we'll just keep that simple for now. I'll build out structures and all that stuff for that some other point. Good morning, Vash. So now we can detect if it is of that type of struct, and we're going to treat it accordingly. Let's see, so the first thing we need to do is we need to turn this struct, which has 3 bytes into it, into a decimal. All right, so okay, well, because these bytes, I'm trying to remember what the offset is. This, like the byte shifting and all that nonsense. I hate working with bits and bytes. casting there, so it's a tad bit easier to work with down here. Protection level. I hope I am doing this right. Been a while since I've had to work with bytes. Never enjoyed it much when I did. It's not yelling at me. I don't know. It's almost worth taking this into a fiddle to see if, not a fiddle, but a little kind of online compiler to see if that works. Oh, there is a .NET fiddle. Okay, cool. These are great for just testing out little bits of code. So, struct. And of course, we got to define this. I'm doing. I'm way off here. All right, let's do byte. Defined. All right, so let's see what happens here. Oh, not what I was looking for. I thought that was going to shift the byte. It's not. Unless I'm doing it wrong. I can almost guarantee I'm doing it wrong, but it's obviously not one bracket. I thought the double brackets were to shift it. Go over to trusty Google. Okay, I'm using a bar, and I think I need to use an ampersand. Let's see if that has any effect. Certainly a different number. shifting. Man. Okay. This is bit, not byte. Okay, so I'm only shifting it by 1 bit. I think I need to do it in 4. Totally guessing. I didn't need to do 8. That doesn't look promising. Also don't know if I am shifting the right direction either. If I get this right, the number for the integer I should be getting is something like 16,777,000, something like that. Obviously, I'm not anywhere even remotely close. Not sure what. God, if anybody knows how to do this bitwise crap that can shoot me a friggin' lifeline, I would appreciate it. I hate this nonsense. Pretty much. I mean, what this should do is each byte here looks something like that. And now to combine them all together, I need to shift each sequential one. Oh, okay, I should be going by 8. So I can already tell you that's off if it. That's what each one looks like. You can't just stack them on top. You have to shift each sequential one. So in order to have a 3 byte see, that's what I'm hoping to get at some point. Which the decimal equivalent of that binary number is something like 16 million. Blah 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 blah. So see just if we happen to look out there. Yeah, nope. Such luck. Before we were at least getting a number. I don't know where we're screwing up now. Let's see. Am I overthinking this? It looks like there is a parse that can handle hexadecimal strings. Do I want to maybe just use a string format, turn this into a string, and then parse it into a decimal? This seems, I don't know if it seems like that might be a little bit of more overhead than I need to be going back and forth to string. I should just be able to take these bytes and turn them into bits. bit converter. What is that? Okay, so there is a bit converter method in System 32. And it takes an array of bytes. Is that exactly what I'm looking for? See what no, actually I'm 32. Alright, so according to this, all I really got to do is pass it as an array with a starting position as a second. So what the constructor of this looks like if I can pass it as Sorry, I'm reading the Microsoft documentation at the same time here. They are never known for being well organized. Okay, I do need to pass it as an array. No, that is right. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, of course. What? Doesn't even make sense. All right, let me dummy this out here and actually define the There we go. We got my array. Should be able to feed that. Oops. Feed that right in now. Same issue. Okay, same thing. Destination array is not. Oh. Is this spitting out an array? Term. I thought it was gonna spit out a double. Or actually, no, shit. Going to integer. Still not. Argument's optional. Okay. So that is certainly not optional. Starting index 1. Definitely has to be. What destination array? In case that matters. Alright, let's read some more documentation here. Obviously, I am missing something. Typing on that. No. Oh, Microsoft, help me out here. Yeah, I'm just reading over the Microsoft documentation here, and I am not seeing what I'm wrong here. Seems pretty straightforward. Wonder if I just started. For the sake of sanity, I am just going to take Microsoft's example and make sure it runs in this fiddle, just to make sure it's not an issue with the. And it runs. Okay, so what the hell am I doing wrong? It's garbage. Okay, 2, 3. All right. All right, now let's chop it down to a byte array. Okay, does it need to be a 4-byte array? Is that? Okay, okay. Weird. That's where I'm screwing up. Why does it have to be 4 bytes? Okay. So negative 250. That's not what I was expecting. I suck at hexadecimal. Negative 250. Okay, so that's not converting like I thought it was going to. God, maybe I do need to go to string. Yeah, that's not right. Yeah, because of the way it's formatted, where these bytes are actually different, are supposed to be different digits instead of just treated as one large group of data, I think I might have to format it into a string, unless I can figure out how to do the shifting. Okay. Sorry for spacing out there. I'm just reading up some Microsoft stuff, and that's what I wanted. Okay, it's the last, it's backwards. There's our 16 million blah 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 that I was looking for. Okay, so it does need to be 4 bits, or rather 4 bytes. Last one is 0, and it looks like since it's backwards, this is the alpha channel. This is R, this is G, this is B. So, this is actually exactly what we are looking for here. So, it's back over here. Let's save that for now. Oh, I didn't want to run it when he. Okay. So we got to go BGR. And with an extra 0. Got here. Extra parenthesis. That should work. And again, we will sanity check. What am I doing? This is a notepad. That's not going to help me much. Get out of here. Cool. There's my 16 million. Awesome. That's what we were looking for. That was a lot harder than it needed to be. Okay, so this turns our color into a double an hour later. All right, now down here, I have a function that returns it back to the normal type. So basically, the first thing this mapping does is it turns everything into a double, like we talked about before. That way, all the functions that happen in between, like the mixing values, the modifying, the toggling, all that stuff, only needs to be written once for the type of double. And what this does is down at the bottom, once all the value changing happens, it returns it back to the type that it should be. And C value is just the type of the actual, the output value, which means we're testing to what we're mapping to see what the type is to make sure that the value that we're playing with is returned in that type. All right, so now we need to figure out how to turn our double that we are creating here from a double back into a byte array, or specifically into this type of struct. And if I am reading this Microsoft MSDN post correctly, that should be pretty easy. Okay, going back to the bit converter, and we're going to use get bytes. Some brackets, it's going to need more. I could make this a single line, but okay, this gives me my bytes, and it is relatively easy then to create that struct from bytes. Remembering this is going backwards, so R is going to be 2. How did that happen? Not paying attention. That's what I'm. Boom. All right, there we go. And that should take our decimal to and from an actual color. Which will make our being able to map to and from light bars possible. I am at a complete loss of words here. Need to drink some more coffee. I think that's what the issue is. Okay. All right, so that's it for that tasking item. I unfortunately don't have any way to test that out yet. Other than that fiddle, it looks like it was working just fine in there, though. So that's just getting ready for more future stuff. Right now, the next thing I would like to work on is creating a macro action that allows you to set the value of a device channel. So, yeah. Do I have anything set up? Nope, I don't have anything set up to do that yet, but it doesn't matter. I think the device wrapper needs another event in it that takes place after the mapping, but before the final device state is sent to the output device. So, what I have an input receive device handler, and that hooks the device state early in the process. But now I need one that's going to hook it later on in the process after mapping happens, because I want this macro action to overwrite the final output state. I don't want it to mess with the input state, because then that could mess with the macro triggers themselves. So, for starters, we're going to create a new event. So we're going to call this output sending. All right, now we got to find in this mess of code, which someday I need to clean up, where it is we actually get ready to send the output. All right. Yeah, I think this is it. This looks promising. Yes, output device send inputs. I believe this is the, okay, yeah, this is using the interface to actually send it. So this is the right spot. State. This uses this device state as 2. I don't think it needs it, but we'll go ahead and send it to previous state just because. Alright. So that takes care of that if there is mapping, and I have it again down here. This is just in case there are no mapping overrides, it completely skips all this, goes down here, and just sends the input. So gotta put it down here as well. Change the actual state to use the input state because it's just sending the input, whereas this one is creating the output state dynamically from all this mapping and looping and blah blah blah, and that's what it sends there. Okay, anyways, we now have a new event, and we are triggering the event prior to the sending. So we got the framework in place now where we can write our IAM command. Let's see, this is going to be a device specific. Now, I wonder if this device specific I'm using is sending the wrapper or if it's sending the input device itself. And that could be a problem. Oh, it would have to be sending the device and not the wrapper because the wrapper exists in the input mapper 1 namespace, whereas the device exists in the plugin interface namespace. Okay, so the issue here is that I screwed myself a little bit. So this macro exists in a separate library that does not understand, or that is not reading the device wrapper type. So it doesn't know anything about this new event that I created that I actually need to hook. So how am I doing it? Second. Hooking the event. Okay. But I can use the device wrapper, get device by ID now or later. I don't know if that helps me. That gives me my device wrapper. Okay, yes, this will work. This will work. We can do this. I just gotta. So the way for it to work is I need to have the output device referenced by the input device that it is attached to by the device ID that it uses. So long as I make up a nice UI way for people to select that device and it grab the device ID, this should work because this is all that really matters, that I'm getting the wrapper from that string. So going back. This is going to take a little thought process here. So let's just start blocking some stuff out here. Need the map? No, we don't need the macro state. We can just use a dependent command. I'm just in here stealing some code to copy and paste. Don't mind me. Actually, set device channel value. That's what we are going to call you. Exclusive. I see you guys over there. Okay, so the exclusive mode. I have been talking about that with Nefarious a few times, and I still think that the only way to go about that is the using his HID Guardian, because that thing works flawlessly as long as you set it up correctly. The only reason that I haven't wrapped that into an installer yet is because he is still heavily modifying it, and creating an installer and all that stuff is, no easy task. So once he gets it to a release state, I'm going to wrap that into an installer. I'm going to directly have Input Mapper communicate with it, so it should work behind the scenes. But in the meantime, you can still use HID Guardian by itself. You just have to be able to manually, go into the registry, make sure that your controller is added to it, and make sure that you're using our third-party service that runs in the backgrounds, the Input Mapper, HID Guardian, Whitelister. I forgot what it was called, but it's in our downloads. So that's the only way to do exclusive mode right now. I don't code for it anymore because Microsoft has made it such a pain in the butt that the only way to do it now is a third-party filter driver. And since Benjamin already has that done, why reinvent the wheel? Sophian Killer. I hope I'm saying that right. Let's see. And every time you connect, the only button that works is the pad. I'm assuming that you mean the trackpad. Pushing that in. What that means is probably the controller to controller mapping isn't working at all, and it's just seeing it's just emulating the mouse. Which means it is reading the controller correctly, but it's not sending it through to the virtual Xbox controller correctly. So that depends on what version of Input Mapper you're using, I guess. If you're using 1.6, that means the virtual bus drivers aren't installed correctly. And that could be because of a driver signing issue, because I believe the certificate on those are expiring, and Benjamin is not going to be renewing it because the new drivers are way better and everything has shifted over to that. So if you use Input Mapper 1.7 and you go through if you go through like the little tutorial that he has on his website, and I have a link to it on the download section of mine, it'll teach you how to install VGem. It looks a little scary at first, but it's actually very simple, and the drivers are a lot more stable than the virtual bus drivers. So yeah, 1.6 will not work with VGem. Only 1.7 will. And obviously, as you see, I'm working on 1.7 right now. It's not quite ready yet, so you are going to have to deal with a couple bugs. The only other thing that you could do is if you really want to use 1.6, I think if you put Windows into test mode, I think it'll ignore the driver signing. If you look that up on Google, there should be ways to figure out how to do that. But Yeah, I believe that if you're not getting an output device, I think it probably has something to do with the drivers uh, are becoming expired. Yeah, because I think, yeah, Virtual Bus, I think those drivers were released at least a few years ago. We haven't, nothing about that has changed in years, so you're probably working with like 3-year-old drivers. So that's probably why it's not working anymore. So yeah, I would either look into going to 1.7, which should work for basic mapping, or you would have to put your machine into some sort of a test state where it'll accept older drivers, and that's not fun either. But hello from Turkey. All right. Okay, so I will jump back into creating this macro command. Okay, category of anything for mapping. Nope. If you go to inputmapper.com, go to the downloads menu, and you should see a menu option that says, I don't know if, are you talking about 1.7 or um, like the 1.6, the VGM? If you're talking about 1.7, just go to inputmapper.com, and at the top you'll see a menu option that says Input Mapper Beta, and that'll take you to the new website, which is just for 1.7, and it has all the download information, all that stuff for it. Okay, this is going to be a pain in the. So this is the Try that again. Okay. This is the interface that tells Input Mapper that this command is going to have a settings window associated with it. Actually, see if I can just copy and paste it from somewhere else. This one has a simple one. Boom. There we go. I love copy and pasting. All right. And I want to make this I notify. It would help if I could spell. There we go. Oh. Actually, I could have just put this into the get set assessors. Property changed. Whatever. Actually, no. I do want to implement that because I want this to sit outside of it. Oh, that uses a callback. Okay, wow, I'm surprised I got that right. Building that out from memory. Okay, so basically this is the pattern that, oops, see a problem? I put this in the execute. I need to put it in a constructor because it needs to happen much earlier. No, right? Oh man, what did I do? I don't know if I need more coffee or less coffee. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, we got this in the constructor now. What this is I talked about this before. This nifty little function that I created that has a callback that will allow for late binding to a device. Even if the device doesn't exist yet, this function will actually wait and spin in the background until the device does show up, and then it'll call this callback where we can set it, where we can set the actual reference to the device. And if it's present immediately, it'll go ahead and call back immediately and set it. If it's not present yet, this will just fire whenever it does show up, which is great for not having to reload this every time a device comes and goes. It allows the device to come and go as it pleases. So, that said, this should now contain the device, the wrapper that is selected by this, even if it doesn't show up until a later time. That's half the battle. Now that we have that, we have to set the channel, or actually, no, we have to hook that event that we created. It happens as the device state is sending to the controller. So we can actually do this in this same callback here. Create, hook that event, output sending. Damn. Okay. So now every time this is hooked. I'm second guessing myself here. Video about the 1.7 install. So there is actually a check-in from a couple months ago that goes over the 1.7 install. It hasn't really changed much, but if you go to the new beta input mapper website, oh cool, I didn't know my website did that. I forgot about that. Anyways, if you go to the beta website, we have this cool new section here called documentation, something that we haven't had in a long time. Installation nightly build. This isn't perfect yet, but it's better than nothing. And this should help you install the 1.7. Things like the VGem are not maintained by us, and the instructions could change, which is why we just link to their install instructions for that. Which, oh, okay, there we go. I thought it was broken for a second. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this has changed. Actually, no, it still looks like the same steps. He just made it look prettier. I guess Benjamin has more time on his hands than I do because this looks a lot prettier than mine. But yeah, so he has some pretty good instructions, it looks like, to install VGem. And these are the instructions here to install the nightly build. If you have any issues along that way, you can go ahead and drop a line in our forums. But it's a lot simpler than it looks. You just have to copy the stuff into the right folders. That's about it. Oh, why is my stream only for mature audiences, though? Hmm, that's cool. Okay, anyways. Alright, so the issue I am kicking around in my head now is this should all work. This will hook the device. Yeah, no problem, Sophie. This should hook the device as it's sending the state out to the output device. Now, the thing with a macro command is we only want that to happen while the macro is triggered. Or don't we? If I'm using it as an independent command, maybe I want it to happen regardless of the trigger. Maybe if... Shit. I'm second guessing myself now. So the thing I'm worried about is every time this set channel value is called, it's going to create this event hook. And I'm worried about that not cleaning up after itself very well. I might have to shelve this, come back to it, so I think of a game plan for it. Because I see two options. One option is I let it go ahead and hook the event and let it persist until there is another set device channel value that comes in and tells it to release it, back to whatever the channel value would be if it's reading the input device. That's one way of going about it. But that could get complicated because then I would need that command action to also know the reference to the command action that hooked the event to begin with. That's a mess. Let's see, the other direction I go, which might be more simple, is if I have this only hook while the macro is true. I think that makes more sense anyways. So to do that, I thought this was going to be a independent command, but instead we're going to have to make this a macro command because we are going to have this reference the macro state. So this is going to ask for another field here. Talking about what? Oh yeah, here we go. Implement. Get rid of this execute. Okay, now we have a new execute that has a reference to the macro. Or if I can create an async. Right, okay. I haven't played around with async stuff much. Usually whenever I want to multi-thread applications, I just create threads like background workers and stuff like that. This async stuff and await stuff is all pretty new to me. So I might have to feel around in the dark a little bit on this. But basically, the way I'm doing that is because I don't want this to hold up the rest of the execution of the macro. Because this is going to have to if you go to our website, there is a Discord link at the top, and you can jump in there. I won't be able to help you right now because if I get sidetracked from this too much, I'm going to totally lose track of what I'm working on here. But yeah, if you jump on there and you catch me a little bit later, I should be able to walk you through how to do this how to install Input Mapper 1.7 a little better. Like I said though, if it's questions about like the VGEM stuff, I don't know too much more other than what Nefarious has on his thing. If you're having issues with it, I was able to just type in the commands he has there, and it seemed to work okay for me. But if there's actual problems, I've never had to troubleshoot it, so I might not know what's going on too well. Anyways, let's see. So I want to steal from the wait for macro release because this is blocking. Okay, yeah, see, this doesn't run async either. This just kind of spins and waits. So, man. That'll hook it. So we don't want to just have it hook when the device arrives. Okay. want it to spin while the macro is triggered. Can we wait a while? Okay, so we can't do that. So maybe I don't want this to be async at all. Oh man. This is where this async stuff throws me through a loop. Is this automatically creating a separate thread for this to run on? Meaning it won't block if I let this stay here and spin? No, I think async runs all of the internal commands asynchronously, so this wouldn't actually block anything. Skip it and move on. Wait task run. Maybe that's what I need. I need a wait task run. This is a actions, so I think I need to do one of these guys. Can't do that. No. This, that. I think that will work. Maybe that'll work. I have no idea. And then we want to move. That's a little sketchy to me. I have no idea if that's going to work. But basically now we are down to actually receiving the device state. So now this should only trigger if the macro itself is triggered, and it should stop once the macro is untriggered. And on top of all that other stuff, this has the ability to be late. Now, actually, now that we need to, I just realized we need to account for if the device wrapper is not set. Basically, if the device has not arrived yet, we don't want to worry about this. Otherwise, this will throw an error saying that that is null and that that property doesn't exist on the property there. So, all right. Now we are receiving our device arguments, which has the device state in it. And pretty much this device state is passed between every event that hooks it, and then it gets passed back to the device wrapper, and whatever the events that are hooking that event, going chasing myself in circles here. Anything that hooks that event can make modifications to the device state, and that device state is what is finally sent to the output device. So now we need to figure out what value we want to assign it. Actually, beyond that, we need to know what channel. So we need a channel selector. I'm going to just steal that from here. Damn. Okay, there we go. Channel selector. Boom. Good. Oh, excuse me. And we need to be able to set the value of it now. Might as well set this by. That'll be the value that we change it to. So blah, blah, blah. Now we have those extra things configured. Man. All right. Do is go here. We're going to grab the device state. And there should be a set channel value override. And then sure enough, there is. Now we take the channel name from the settings. There it is. We grab the channel. Now we set the value. Our output value. In theory, that should do it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay, that's in the constructor. So it'll grab that device ID when this is built, but if that device ID changes, we need to re-grab it. So for that, good thing we use the iNotify property changed. Here we need to hook this property changed event and redo this every time the property of device ID is changed. I don't think we need to hook channel or value because those will end dynamically every time the macro itself receives a report. So if those change, those will automatically reflect there. So to config. Yeah, let's create it. Property equals device ID. Bam. That should do that. Okay. Man. I just made so many changes here. There's so many places where that could go wrong. It's going to be a pain to debug. But let's see what happens. trustyjoy.cpl. Go ahead and fire this off here. Okay, it built. That's a good sign. Some more coffee. Ugh. Oh yeah. That's the stuff. All right. Let's see. We're gonna set this one to circle. Actions. Okay, here we go. Set device channel value. All right, so since I don't have a selector control here yet, I have to, oh boy. Let's go out of this because I'm gonna have to see what the device ID that this is using. I just realized that in that notify property changed, I should have it clean up any old vent hooks when that changes before it hooks the new ones. So I'll go back in and do that in a minute. Should still be able to do this though. Okay, device ID. 4, 5, 6, 6, 6, 5. FB 91. Channel. Let's, I don't know, D-pad up. Sure. Value 1. Okay. Should work? I don't know. Your all's guess is as good as mine. Alright, we got it there. Because of that tasker that I have on the website that says that it won't detect the macros until you unassign and reassign. Until I get to that, I have to go ahead and do this. Sign the profile. Okay, now go over to Joyce CPL. Look at the Xbox controller. Now, if I hit the circle button, that should show D-pad up, and it does not. Matter of fact, it throws an error. Specified cast is not valid. What? Okay, channel name value. Oh, okay. That channel is a bool. It's numeric. I have to pass it through the little mapping normalizer thingamajigger. Actually, wow. Other than it being of the wrong type, it looks like that worked. I wonder what the easiest way to do that is. I wonder if I can call the mapping routine. Let's see, that wants a bunch of states. I might break this out into a separate routine for normalizing. which means just like I have a separate function that normalizes the inputs, I might create a separate function that recasts the outputs so that it can be used by not only the mapping value, but it can also be called upon by my my macro action. All right. Luckily, this should be pretty straightforward. So pretty much this is, instead of doing like explicit or implicit casting elsewhere throughout the application, I am going to have this automatically detect the type. And the reason why it's not detecting the input value is because that's almost always assuredly going to be a double, which is not necessarily output type that I'm going to use. Okay, type is never of type type. Type is of type type, it's never of type bool. So what I need to do is of, right? Yeah, am I doing this right? Oh, here. Oh, all lowercase, gotcha. So, I hope I am doing this right. This needs a digital threshold. Yeah, that makes. Okay. No, I can't do that if I'm going to use this in both places. This all-in-one thing might not work because in the actual mapping, there is a property called digital threshold, which it uses to determine whether or not a decimal is of true or false value. Whereas in this case, I want it to just be 1 or 0. Okay, what I can do is in the mapping, I can have it convert the double if it's over that threshold to a 1 instead of just converting it to a bool. Then pass that to this and have this value equals 1. Oh. Should be an else if. Sure. Okay. Now, in order to start using that, dynamic, is that why I'm not get type? I believe. I hate dynamics sometimes because you lose the IntelliSense. Comment that out. Now, we were talking about that decimal needing the mapping threshold before. So we need to add a special case for that. That's basically all we need to do for that. Okay. Basically, all of that restructuring there was just to give me access to this new method, cast to type, right here. There it is, set channel value. Value. Cast to type. It's our value. We're mapping it to shit. Okay, we have to call it get channel value. Wondering if we're losing efficiency by running this cast twice, so we'll do can't type. Makes it look a little cleaner too. Get channel. This is turning into a mess. Not be dynamically dispatched. Oh, for Christ's sakes, come on. Okay. Wait, what? Hold on. Am I screwing up? Losing my damn mind. Yeah, okay, that's cast, and then we're going to set the channel. Okay. Just had to be of type object, I guess. It just doesn't like maybe dynamic. Yeah, that's what it was. Gotcha. Alright, hopefully it likes type object. That should work. Give it another shot here. Wait for this to pop back up here. I have no idea why it takes so long for the DualShock 4 to show up in this. That's on my to-do list. Dig into that deeper. Alright. Properties for this. Now, I hit the circle button. It should show D-pad up. It does not. Nothing is happening. D-pad up is, that's me hitting it right now. Why, oh why, oh why? Okay. Getting any errors in here? Oh, I'm a dope. We crashed the application before, so that macro did not save. Okay, it's not there. Cool. So I gotta recreate it. Man, I thought we almost took a couple steps backwards there. Okay, button press is gonna be circle button. It's gonna be my trigger, my actions. channel. Drop forward, D-pad up. Set that value to 1. God, lag there for a second. I don't know what that was about. Okay. Okay. Assign that profile. Just to refresh it. Now. Hey, look at that. We push the circle and we are now getting the D-pad up. And it takes it away as soon as I release it. That is amazing. Doesn't interfere with the normal D-pad operation at all. That is awesome. All right, let's go a step further. Excuse me, we know mapping to a button works. Let's edit this. Let's send it to a trigger. Pass him. Trigger. Oh, that's right. On DualShocks, it's called L2. And let's change this value just to toy around with it. Okay. That shouldn't need a refresh because I think it pulls those in live. Nope. Okay, I do need a refresh. Swap that to default. That. Okay, now when I hit circle, awesome. See what it does to when I normally push the trigger. It overrides it. Perfect. Okay. Mission accomplished. UI-wise, it is not pretty. I need to come up with a nicer, quicker way to, especially choosing the device ID. I need a device dropdown where you can just pick it. Channel selector is, actually that's another tasking item I have. I want to create a image-based mapping option where when you open this up, if it's a device type that has a image-based mapper built into it, you can just click on the device itself instead of having to scroll through a list. So that hopefully will be getting an update eventually. It's not a huge hurry because it doesn't actually prohibit anything from working. It's just it would be nice kind of a thing. This needs some UI explanation as to how to set it to 1 if it's going to a button. But otherwise, yeah. That works. While I'm here, I will give a quick little sneak peek to the new code commands and actions that I am including. Actually, I already have one in here. I think it's this one. Yeah, execute code CS. So this is something else that I have been working on that I am really looking forward to. Whenever you run this action, you can actually have it run C# code. And the cool thing with this is when this profile is assigned to a controller, this code actually compiles, but it doesn't enter in yet, and it sits in the background. So you can have things running in the background for this action, such as this counter, which is persistent between presses and like between controller connects and reconnects and stuff like that. So I have this action mapped to my cross button. So if I push it, See, the macro executes this code and it tells me it's been run one time. But now, even though this macro action has, passed and it's no longer triggered, it keeps this value in its memory because the object, the class here, has been compiled and exists in input mapper's memory now. So that's a cool thing where you can have persistent little applications and all that stuff going, and then have it, every time you hit a button, run a function, which in this case is the entry point, which is the main. The things that I am adding to it are I am going to have I got to create a control for it, but I want it to be able to pass as a parameter to this function pretty much any variable that exists in input mapper, including full-blown profiles, full-blown controller state, stuff like that. So if you really want to do some advanced stuff in there, you have access to the controller states, you'll have access to the profile, stuff like that. And I also want to have it have a return type. So once you have your function do whatever it is you want it to do, it can spit a value back out, and input mapper can then recognize that value and do something with it. That's all stuff that I've been kicking around in my head. That's all would be nice stuff. I don't exactly have any immediate plans to do that right now. Actually, I don't know what my roadmap is right now. I should jump into some UI polish because a lot of this looks a little bit overwhelming to some people. Yeah, 1.7 is almost stable. I say almost stable just because I haven't had any issues. I have a virtual machine that I load this up on every now and then that is a vanilla, just bare bones Windows 10, and it doesn't have any issues running it so long as you configure VGM and all that stuff correctly, which can be a little bit of a pain if you're not used to installing stuff by the PowerShell and stuff like that. So the only thing that's really keeping more people from using 1.7 right now is that it doesn't have an installer, and it still has a manual install process you got to go through. So yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable with installing stuff manually, I say go for it. Try 1.7 out. I push out nightly builds constantly, and as a matter of fact, this seems stable enough. Why don't we do a nightly build right now? Make sure it runs in release mode. Yeah, that looks good to me. Gonna connect the controller, trigger those macros, make sure those trigger. Let's see, there's a box there. Where's my double check my little mapping guy? Yep, that works too. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and push a nightly build of this right now because it looks like it's not giving me any issues at least. So the whole benefit to nightly builds and why I can push these, as long as there is a stable build. So all I have to do is double click this little guy here. And this does everything. This builds the zip for me. This uploads it to the website. This updates all the information on the website. So as soon as this little script here is done working, you can immediately go to the website and see the new version. It's even going to ask me to enter in some changelog stuff, and it has been it's been almost a month since I think I have pushed a nightly build, so some of the changelog stuff will elude me. But we know we did the C# macro action. We now have the controller state macro action. We started some of the framework for light bar mapping, being able to convert that red, green, blue value to and from a decimal, which is going to be the whole backbone of our mapping. Here we go. Enter some changelog info. All right. Always bug fixes. There we go. Updating. There we go. Bob's your uncle. So, let's just double check, make sure. There we go. Sure enough, there it is already. Nightly build 176848 is up. So if you guys want to play around with the stuff you just watched me do, it's up there. You can grab it now. The C# code is going to be pretty cool, especially once I get it so you can pass variables back and forth. The setting the device state is an important one because a lot of macros involve like creating like a bunch of like predefined like bunch of stuff that you press and all that. And I stuttered there because I just thought of a case. I wonder how it's going to behave if you want it to have several things happen in sequence for that macro where you're setting the device state. I might have to have it set some. Man, I don't know. I don't know how that setting the device state is going to work if there are multiple ones for each macro. Setting one button to one channel is easy enough, but setting one button so it triggers several different channels, possibly with the delay in between, I don't know how that's going to behave right now. I haven't tried it. So I might have to jump back in and redo a lot of the stuff that I just did, but that's just the way it works. So I'm going to wrap it up here today. I've put in a good, I don't even know how long I've been going at it here yet. 2 hours almost on the mark. Okay. Yeah, so got some good progress today. Got another nightly build out for you guys to play around with. I will test some stuff, including what I was just talking about, seeing how it behaves when you map several different things to a channel on a macro. And I will get to you guys tomorrow with the normal check-in video, go over all the stuff. But yeah, I might do this more often, live coding, where you guys can, hit me up live, chat me up a little bit, ask me questions. But all right, guys, that'll do it. Have a good one.